Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We'll give everyone a minute to join before we begin this. All right, we'll go ahead and get things started here. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us today for our Fieldwire Basics webinar on how to set up a project in Fieldwire. My name is Pranati Gumpa, and I'm a Construction Success Manager here at Fieldwire. Before we begin, I would like to address a few housekeeping items. To ensure a smooth session, attendees will be muted, but please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have in the Q&A panel. Just mixing up this time, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of each section of the presentation. Our host will tell you the 3 sections, and we will do our best to address as many questions as we can. So keep adding your questions as you have while we are going through the presentation, because we're gonna have it at the end of each section instead of at the end of the webinar. For any questions we don't get to, our experts will reach out to you directly. We also have some poll questions during the webinar for you to participate in. Please feel free to select your answer when the questions pop up. Additionally, we have a short 5-question survey at the end of the webinar, which we would appreciate if you could fill it out. This survey helps us determine the usefulness of the content we deliver and also helps us to plan for our future webinars. Awesome. So before we dive into the webinar, please take a moment to fill out this poll question so that we can learn a little bit more about you. So here are the questions on the screen. What type of company do you work for? Just have a few options. Take a minute to fill that in. Awesome. Thank you for that. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our solutions engineer, Roma Jani. Roma, it's all yours.
Thank you, Pranati. Yeah, just as a quick introduction, my name is Roma. I have a background in heavy civil general contracting as well as facilities management. So my role here as a solutions engineer is to infuse my construction experience with the Fieldwire product, recommend workflows, things like that. And today, that is exactly what we're going to be doing. You know, we gave our introduction. We're going to have a brief overview of what Fieldwire is for those of you who maybe this is your first time looking at it. And then we're going to jump into the demo, looking at the field side of it, where how can we set up a Fieldwire project for you. I know we have a Q&A section at the end, but also throughout the plans, tasks, and forms, we'll stop and take some questions. So Fieldwire, what is it? It is the middle of the Venn diagram between the field and the office. We are here to connect them, you know, whether it be through communication, just updates, you can track work as it shows here. It's not only field management, we do project management as well. So managing RFIs, submittals, change orders, things like that. But today we're going to be focusing on just the field side. So you can see here we have a pro and our business tier. Our business plus is the RFI submittals, change orders modules, and anything that's starred here That's part of our business tier, so I will call it out as we move forward. But just wanted to keep that in mind, so that some things may apply, some things may not apply. The other thing I want to mention is this webinar is based off of a project setup tutorial video that we have available. Either Dylan or Pranati will link it in the chat, but feel free to watch that. This is very similar to that. I'm just giving more tips and tricks, and again, this is me answering your questions. So we're going to be running through not all of it. For example, settings and inviting people, we're not going to do that. But yeah, let's jump into it. So this is Fieldwire on the web version, which with each of these tiles being my projects. So if I want to make a new project, hit plus new project, name it, and I can either clone or use a template. So I want everyone to keep that in mind for today, because basically as we templatize and as we find what workflows work for you, you can create these templates and then standardize it. So with that, I'll jump into plans, but before I do so, I think we have a poll question.
Yeah, so there we go. Just wanted to understand if ever your employees work off of an outdated plan. Just a quick poll question. Go ahead and put in your answer. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. So let me dive into this project. And we're at the plans section. Again, I cheated a little bit. We have some plans in here. When you create a new project, you'll be greeted with a notification that prompts you to set this up. But I just wanted to show everyone a couple things. So first things first, uploading a plan. All I'm going to do here is drag and drop some PDFs of my plans. And they're going to load. So while it's loading, Fieldwire is scanning for hyperlinks to different details. It's scanning for the scale, the number of the plan, and this just helps us, get oriented. And yeah, I'm just going to wait a second for it to load. Recognizes that I have, is this the same plan sheet? This yellow notification will come up the first time you upload any plan set. Again, we recommend setting up your oldest plan first. So here it's asking me to confirm. And we can click through all of these. I only have 4, so it's no big deal. But if you have 100, 1,000 plans, it can be cumbersome. So what I'm going to do is select my plans that are formatted the same. And then I'm going to click Actions and Scan Number / Description. The numbers looked good, so I'm deselecting the sheet number, but basically this screen is asking me, or I'm telling Fieldwire, hey, you have to scan here in order to read my plan sheet. So this is exactly what not to do here. You can see I'm cutting out some text, I'm crossing some lines, and I'm telling Fieldwire to read right to left. So we're just going to move this box to cover as much area as possible without cutting any lines. And I'm just going to wiggle this little end to make the arrow follow where my mouse is pointing. So this is just important for, let's say you had a vertical and it was reading up versus down. You're telling Fieldwire where and how to read. So what it's going to do is now it's scanning for the descriptions of the plans. Here we go, perfect. So I can see that's my stormwater management plan and I can confirm. The other thing that happens is because this plan has the same number as an existing plan, it's showing me this conflict. So I can click on this or I can click on the review button. And basically here, if I click on the tiles, it shows me my existing plan and the new ones, so I can compare the details, make sure they are the same plan. And if they are, I can just hit add as new version. You can see that the additional link went away, and that's because we slip sheet the floor plans. So I'm just going to hit confirm all for the rest of them, and you can see everything's named. So my plans are good to go, and I want to show you the versions.
Quick
So here
question,
we
when you're adding the versions, is there a limit to the number of versions we can add on Fieldwire?
That is a good question. So there is no limit. You can have as many versions as you'd like. On the mobile device, it does store 10. Hopefully no one has a project with more than 10 revisions for a plan set. So you're definitely be covered.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And when I upload it, it is the date of the plan. And you can see here when I uploaded my original set on the 2nd of July, when I click on it, you can see that it has this old version watermark. So now your team knows, hey, let's not work off the old set of plans. There's also something else we can do, which is compare. I really like this for your field teams. You can do it on mobile or in the office. We can overlay two plans to see what the differences are between them. So this could be for the same plan like I'm showing here, or overlays for conflict detection. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight this difference. So I'm in compare mode. I have my pink cloud. All I did was drag and drop diagonally. And you can see that it stays on your topmost drawing. So any markups that you make in compare mode will go to your topmost drawing. Since we're here, I also want to talk about some hyperlinks in plans. So this is still processing, you can see that. But because Fieldwire scans for the plan numbers, it's also scanning your plan to see if those numbers are referenced. So I can see here that this detail is being referenced. And great, it's allowing me to see this elevation, and I can jump back to my original one. I recommend linking as many things as you can to the plans, because it makes it easier for your field team to view. So they'll be able to see their elevations, but let's say you have a certain door schedule or something like that. You can take a hyperlink icon and select the first one, and we can link a different plan. So if I want to link my civil plan to this, for example, you can do that, and that way your field team knows, okay, I need to reference this plan. The same goes for files and photos. I really like this for progress photos. You can pop these links down on your plan, and that way your field team will know, okay, let me stand here to take the different progress photos, and it's really standardized throughout. I'm just going to upload a photo I already have, but again, they can just take it from their mobile device. The last thing I want to show you is the file. So similar to photos, if there's any reference data, you can just link it here. So I just linked this toolbox talk. This is really great for like cut sheets, memos, things like that. You don't get a full plan set, but they're sending you a new detail. Your team is able to reference everything in one place, and it makes it a lot easier for you setting it up. So with that, I want to jump to the files section. This is also really similar and easy to set up. All you can do is create your new folder. So when it comes to plans versus files, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference? Why do I have this files? And I like to say it's for reference data. So let's say you have MSDS, things like that, COIs, anything that you want to reference on site that you can link to a plan, a task, etc. That's a great thing to put into files. So I'm going to say this is our MSDS. And I do want to mention that we can restrict access. So obviously everyone needs access to this, but let's say you were doing something with invoicing or pricing, you wanted it to be a little more private, we can create this admin only, and it has this lock. This is just really great for organizing. And I also want to mention that with this, I can see where it's linked. So because I linked that toolbox talk earlier, you can see that it took me right to the plan, it zoomed in, so I know where everything is linked. That being said, when it comes to files, We also have in our business tier a two-way sync. So what that looks like is this. Basically, this works with your Dropbox, Box, and OneDrive, and you'll have a Fieldwire folder. Inside that are your different project folders, so that would correlate to these tiles. And inside the tiles, you have the modules, which are these folders. So for files and plans, what we just went over, those are two-way sync. It doesn't matter if you're putting in your plan in Dropbox, it will show up in Fieldwire and vice versa. Photos, however, for example, are one-way sync. So if you take a photo in your OneDrive, it will not go to Fieldwire, but your Fieldwire folders will go to OneDrive. So here is where that is copying. And again, that's part of the Business and Business Plus tiers. And I also want to mention, or let me show you how to configure them before I get that. So we're going to click on this Settings tab, and if you scroll down, you see under Apps, your Box, Dropbox, or OneDrive. So you can connect either of those for the two-way sync. I also want to mention the integration. So this is an either or. You can either use your two-way sync, or you can integrate SharePoint and Google Drive. So that is a pull where you could set it up where the Fieldwire files will pull files from your Google Drive. This makes it really easy to share limited files with any vendors, subcontractors, things like that, where you don't want to give them Fieldwire access, but you do, you do want to share some information with them. The last thing I want to touch before we move on is photos. So it may seem pretty simple and straightforward. Hey, we can put photos in. But what I think is great about Fieldwire and setting it up is that it shows you who uploaded it and when. So as photos are taken, you know the time and date stamp already, and you know who to talk to if you need a question about it. And it also shows you the link. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to bring me to where I linked it earlier. This is incredible for, putting every little picture that you have on site, knowing where it goes. When I was back on site, I had thousands of pictures of just what looked like the same pipe, the same crack in some concrete. And this is a really great way to store them. So everything's stored, grouped by date, and then you can see where it's linked. That is what I had for plans, files, and photos. I did want to stop for some questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Roma, for explaining how to upload plans and about the revisions. I have a couple of questions for you. So one of the biggest questions a couple of people have asked is, let's say they put some kind of markups, may it be like their hardware revision sets or like markups for doors and everything, or any other notes that they've put on the old set. Once they upload the new set, do they transfer up to the new set or not?
That is a great question. So the short answer is yes. If I were to mark up this set and then upload a new one, it would transfer those. However, now when because I have a new one, if I go back and mark up an old one, that will not transfer up. So is that clear?
Yep, awesome. Thank you so much. The next question we have is, what happens if there's more than 10 revisions?
So we'll still keep them. Fieldwire will keep all 10 of them. It's just on the mobile device, we have a limit of 10. So I know some people, they don't want their field team to be confused with looking at all the revisions. They're like, I only want them to look at the newest one. And Fieldwire shows you the newest one first, but you can just limit it.
Got it. But on the website, you'll still see all the revisions.
Absolutely, yes. There is no limit to the number of plans, the number of revisions to Fieldwire.
Awesome. The next question here for you is, what is the limit of PDF sheets per project?
I'm sorry?
Do we have any limit on the number of sheets?
We do not have a limit. You can upload as many sheets as you'd like. I think there's a limit of 1 gigabyte per upload, but hopefully you don't have a gigabyte of plans in one day. And you could still upload more. It would just be clicking the button more.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next question is, can you export the overlapping prints? Like once you overlay two prints, is there a way you can export them?
So let me hit compare. And I'm glad you asked this question. So if I don't want to show my overlap, there's my eye. I can turn this off and then export as image, and this will bring up an export of my compare. Oh, it opened on my other screen. Give me a second, but here it is.
No worries.
So is that all?
Yes, let's go back to the next section. Thanks everyone for the
Perfect.
questions. Keep them coming.
Yes, thank you. We're about to talk about tasks. So before we dive into it, Pranati is going to ask another poll question.
Yeah, there we have the next one. Tasks is one of the modules that which is very much to Fieldwire, and we just want to understand how comfortable you are in customizing the tasks. Awesome, thanks for that.
Awesome. Can you see my screen all right? Yes. Okay. So before we get into tasks, I want to explain what they are for those of you who may not know. Essentially, tasks in Fieldwire are any action item, anything that you'd like to track. It's a way for you to communicate and contextualize all of your documents, photos, any details of work that you're performing. So I know this looks a little intimidating. This is everything that you can customize in a task, and because we're doing project setup, of course I had to show it. But just know that you can configure all of this, but if this is too much, you can use the simplest version of tasks. You can just use it as a texting and communication form with photos. It's a really great way to have that proof of work should anyone claim something happened on site. So we're gonna be focusing on the task attributes that we can customize for when people fill out a task. All right, so this is our task view. I'm gonna make a new task just so things get a little lively, but you can see here, like I mentioned, the different attributes. So we're just gonna go down this list. The first ones are statuses. So statuses are basically your workflow. So for general contractors, let's say you're using Fieldwire for punching, it could be as simple as complete, in progress, on hold, and you would move the tasks throughout the columns. For your subcontractors, you have a lot more room to play with. So you could make this, for example, an electrical subcontractor could make it like terminated, rough in, wire pulled, etc. And you can, that way you can see what fixtures are in which status. So if you click the gear icon next to each priority, we can see here the different statuses. So it's really simple to edit them. Just hit this pencil, and I'm choosing the default one. So what that means is if anyone on your field team or you yourself make a task and don't give it a status, it will automatically go here. So I'm going to call this in progress. We have a completed version, and I'm going to call this one on hold. I'm going to delete this one because I just don't need it. So just so you know, we have a 3 status minimum and a 7 status maximum. So there's definitely a lot of wiggle room. The other thing I want to customize is the type. So you can see that these two are open and this is tracked. What tracked is it will track the date or the time and the time that you moved a task into that status. So if something was in progress, it was on hold, we got a stop work order, it would show that date. The other thing is verify. So this is kind of like our two-step authentication, perfect for QA QC teams, where your field team can put in completed, but only a Fieldwire administrator can say, yes, this is complete, it passed our QC checks, all that good stuff. So I'm hitting save. And it's just gonna take a second. Perfect, you can see that it's changed. And if I shift this, you can see that I changed the status. The next thing is categories. So categories are how tasks are grouped. For general contractors, I recommend either trade, the specific subcontractor themselves. For subs, the world is your oyster. So let's stick with that electrical example. For example, if you have just one scope of work, but you need to put in a lot of fixtures, each of your categories could be the different fixtures that you're putting in, and then that way you have your, terminated, pulled, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm gonna make one because I have a GC background. I'm gonna put in some GC related things, but all I'm doing is hitting the plus new category, typing in my category, let's do plumbing, and hitting enter. So these initials here will show up on my task as I assign it to a category. That's supposed to say HVAC, but that's no problem. If I want to change it, I can hit this gear icon, hit edit, and change either of these initials. So there's no limit on categories. You don't have to worry about that. The next thing we have, I'm going to skip a little bit, are start and end dates. So these pretty straightforward. It's not really something that you can customize. I mean, obviously you can put in the dates, but we have that as well. The next thing that we can customize are nested locations. So with tasks, I have the ability to click this icon and pop a task on the plan. This is really great because now I can say, again, we have a drywall issue in this area. What's great about this is now it contextualizes it. I see that it's on the plan, but what's different, what I can create that's different are locations. So locations are in Fieldwire are tiered. They look like this, where let's say you have your East Campus. Inside that, you have your building, you have your level 1, your bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. You can go up to 5 tiers as shown here, and Fieldwire will nest those locations under each other. This is great for, hey, these are open items in level 2. You can be as specific as these are open items installed to, There's a lot of different options when you're reporting on tasks. You can filter on all of these attributes. So I'm putting in I'm going to import a file that has my nested locations. Here we go. And while that's loading, I just want to say the file looks exactly like this. Basically, tier 1 is my campus, all the way to tier 5 is my specific stall, specific room, whatever it may be. This is great for apartment buildings, high rises, large neighborhood large neighborhood complexes, and even stations. If you're doing a roadwork job and you have different stations, it's a great way to show those mile markers. So it's going to load for a second, and now I can see my East Campus inside building 3, level 2, et cetera, et cetera. And now I can attach that. However deep I want to go, I don't have to choose the bottom one, to my tasks. All right, so from there we have our tasks here. And the other thing I wanted to mention was checklists. So checklists are great for tasks that you want to be done a certain way. Just little reminders your team keeps on forgetting, but you need to remind them. I think they're great for informal inspections, just daily safety walks, things like that. When we get into the forms feature, that's where I think your official inspections, your official safety walks, things like that should happen. But yeah, it's as simple as hitting add new checklist, create new checklist, and I'm going to copy paste a quick housekeeping checklist that I just have ready on Excel. So if this is specific to this task, I can add it. If this is something I know I will use again, I'm going to hit save as checklist, call it my housekeeping one. And now I can hit add to task. So anytime there's a task and I know that there needs to be housekeeping, for example, I can add an existing one and it will let me add my checklist. So now we can see, is everything done? This is just an amazing way to standardize work without overwhelming your team. Okay, the last thing I want to mention with task attributes, and this is part of our business tier, so I do want to call it out, are custom task attributes. These are basically if there's something you want to track with all of your work that isn't captured here with Fieldwire, you can create a custom attribute. So linear feet of conduit installed. Let's do cubic yards of concrete poured. So we have different attribute types. Short text and number, they're just free entry. Your team can type them in, and then list will give you a drop-down list. I think those are great for, if you have certain equipment or material inventory, they can select that this is it. I've seen people put their cost codes here as well, but let's do number. So cubic yard of concrete poured. And now on all of my tasks, I have this. So if I want to say we did 40 today, and then maybe tomorrow we did 50, you can see here as I update it, the time will be updating it as well. So with these, you have a 25 attribute limit. And again, I don't want everyone to think that, oh, every time my field guy has to go to a site, they have to fill out all of this. They don't. They can just do the bare minimum of what you need, and that way they won't get overwhelmed, but you'll still get the data that you need. So I wanted to jump into creating a task. You saw me create one on the plan. I think that's great for, again, your field team. They're seeing these issues as they're walking around, but let's say we're setting up a project, right? So let's say we got our baseline schedule, our SOV, basically all the data we need about this is the work we need to do, and we can come to this task importer. So this will allow us to put in any of those task attributes. You can see here my different tiers for location, start and end date, even who it's assigned to. And you can see that my CTA of concrete is there. So this is a great way for me to quickly, I'm gonna go over to my Excel and copy paste. For me to quickly say, hey, we have some work that needs to be done for our project. So these are our baseline tasks. You can see here that I'm getting some errors, and this is because it's just warning me that we don't have this plan. So I think I just typed in my wrong plan. If not, it will give you a drop down as well. Or you can just delete it, but you can see all of your errors. And I did want to point out actually, if I try to click import, it will give me an error, but we're just going to hit import. All of the tasks are going to be loaded with all of the attributes as well. So I can see that this is related to the plan, how much manpower, cost, date, etc.
Hey Roma, now that you've put these start dates and end dates, are there different views for me to track, maybe in like calendar or like Gantt chart to see where my tasks are or when they need to be done?
Absolutely. If you click on the top right here, I can see my tasks. What's great is, so I'm in watch tasks. I'm a watcher because I uploaded all of them, and watchers are just like being CC'd on a task. But if I click on my task, now I know, hey, this is what my week is looking like, or this is what the drywall team is looking like. You can do the same for Gantt. I really like the Gantt one as well because it shows you the aggregate of your manpower. So if you have manpower associated with a task, it will add it to this bar. You can see as I shift it, it shifts the labor curve as well. The last view we have is this this current task view, this analytics view, and we can basically see how our project is doing, just get a snapshot of how our tasks are doing. So this is project managers.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. The last thing I want to talk about with tasks is reporting. So the whole point of recording and communicating all these tasks on Fieldwire, I think, is so the whole CYA concept. You know, you have your bases covered, you can prove work, you can give updates, things like that. So Fieldwire creates this report where it would be your project date, project background, things like that, and then a report of the tasks. So I ran a PDF detailed report. So this is showing me all of my task attributes, where it is on the plan, any photos, you can see communication done, even the time and date stamp of when Bob Super checked off this checklist item. Additionally, files linked to tasks will also show up. So I just opened that and it looks like the submittal is attached. So it's a really great way to either prove, hey, this is the work that you've done, or give to your vendors and subcontractors and say, you know, this is the work you're going to do next week, or this is what we're going to bill you for, because this is all you did. So in order to customize that, just hit generate reports. We're going to create a new one. We'll call it billing. And again, I'm going to PDF detailed. This is what I want to include in my report. So I do want the cubic yards poured, for example, but I don't want all those messages. And then these are the filters. So for example, because this is a billing report, I'll say, I just want to see things that were completed last month. And what it'll do is it will run this report. I can even schedule it to be sent to myself or my accounting team every month. And that way they know, okay, we can bill for these are completed. This is great for punch listing as well. Hey, this is what we completed, or this is what we found on this day on this walk. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on to a Q&A session with tasks. I got a little too excited.
Thank you. So the first question here is there a notification or like an alert sent when the tasks are assigned to you?
Yes, that's a great question. So right here, this bell icon will show that a task has been assigned to you. It will show you the job it's in, and you can also receive notifications via email.
The next question we have is, so you basically showed like copy pasting a checklist. Like what system did you use to like copy it from?
Yes, I just used Excel. So I had typed out my list on this sheet and then copy pasted it. If not, you can type it straight into Fieldwire. That's how I did the importer as well.
Awesome, thank you. And the third question here is, how many nested locations can be formatted?
Like the maximum.
Yeah, like
it's different. I'm not aware of any limit. I haven't found of any customers that do. I'm sure Fieldwire does set limits. I'm sure it's like over 1,000, but I have not personally run into any limits. That's something we can definitely get back to you on.
Awesome, thank you. And where can I view the completed reports as everyone else would see it? Like if I'm setting up a report, can I review it? Do I have to set the templates again?
Yes, that's a great question. So you can see when I click this generate report, I can see the billing one that I just made. So I can click on this and I can save it, or I can send this now. So if I hit download now, it will download and you can view it from there.
Awesome, thank you. Let's continue to the next section.
Awesome. So the next section is forms. I'm going to give us some time for a poll question.
There we go. Just want to understand if your company builds custom forms on Fieldwire. Awesome.
Okay, amazing. So let's go on to forms. What are they in Fieldwire and how can we customize them? So forms are just a great way to formalize any processes, any documentation without having to deal with crumpled up timesheets, for example, inspections, things like that, with covered in oil and what have you. So forms are a great way and a really customizable tool to capture this information in a more formal way. Let's shift back to Fieldwire, and I'm going to open my Forms tab. So again, I kind of cheated. We do have a form template here already. This is Fieldwire standard daily report. And I'm just going to click these three dots and hit Manage Template so that we can see the back end of the form. How you customize forms is using our various different section types. So I'm just gonna hit this preview button so we can talk through the section types, but they are weather. What's great is, as you can see, it'll be filled automatically. You don't have to look at weather.com anymore. We have a list section type where these are great for surveys, inspections, like I mentioned earlier, where we can quickly say, yeah, there was a schedule delay, there was rain, we couldn't pour concrete today. We have a table section, which is basic, like they're dynamic tables. So you, as the person customizing this, would customize the columns, and then whoever's filling out the form adds the rows. You can see here it's great for work, equipment, material delivery logs. Like we had a effluent tank leaking log when I worked at the wastewater treatment plant, so that would be a great use for this. And then we have attachments and signatures. These are great for, let's say, progress photos. Let's say you have a hot work ticket or a permit or something, you can add it to this form and that way it's there. And then signatures, pretty straightforward. If you need a sign off from a representative or from your team, they can sign it off. So you can see here what it looks like on the back end in order to customize a section. Let's go to the bottom. I would add a new section. It's just telling me to unpublish. So what it's doing is putting it in edit mode, and now I can edit it. And then you choose your section. I'm going to choose the list, and we'll just keep it with site survey. And now I can add my line. So I can say what kind of answer do I want. So maybe, again, let's do date and time of inspection. I can create my entry, and just hitting preview, that's what it looks like. They can put this drop down. Just for the sake of time, we do have a lot of different ways you can customize. You can create custom drop down lists. And let's say here we can also add different integers and calculation boxes. So if you wanted to see the different material quantities, for example, you'd be able to do so, but it's just a matter of clicking on the section, clicking on the list that you want to add or the type of answer you want to add, and creating it.
Roma, can you maybe speak to a little bit of when to use a list section versus a table section?
Yes, that is a great question. So list sections, like I mentioned earlier, they are one question, one answer. These are great for when you need that definitive answer. Like tables, I would say, are for when you need that certain data, but not like an unlimited amount of data. So like I mentioned with the effluent log, it's something that I'm constantly updating, and it's not something that's fixed.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, it's great because I can also link forms to tasks. So we can see here on the right side, if I were to link it, I would know that, okay, this pour was great. This was my slump test results, for example. So things I've seen forms for are toolbox talks, safety walks, hot work tickets, like I've said 1,000 times, inspections. The world is really your oyster when it comes to forms. And with that, I did want to have a question and answer session.
Quick question on this. Why would you recommend using a form over a checklist?
That is a great question. So it's definitely a formality. So I imagine the safety manager would be the one that's documenting, hey, so-and-so's not wearing his helmet, hard hat, etc. Whereas if you want to make sure that all right, I'm tied off before 6 feet, over 6 feet, things like that. Something more casually as you're preparing, and it has to do with work, I recommend using the checklists. Yeah.
Awesome. The next question we have for you here is, after a form template is published, can it be edited?
Yes. So all you have to do is hit unpublish again, and then we will be able to edit it.
Awesome. The next question we have is, can you import your maybe own MS Word form into Fieldwire?
That is a good question. So it's not necessarily an importer that you can't. Fieldwire doesn't scan your forms. You would have to build it out, and that's because with this form data, you're able to export it as a CSV. So let's say with these dailies, for example, what I've seen a lot of customers use this for is, let's say you're tracking weather days, they would export as a CSV, and you'd be able to see line by line, column by column, which days were weather days. So that's why we don't have the transfer. If you wanted to keep that format, you could put that Word doc in the file section.
Awesome, thank you. So when you link forms to tasks, and once the tasks are exported, will the forms properly show, or how will the forms show in a task report?
That is a good question. So when I showed earlier with the rebar shop drawing submittal, like how it linked there, that's how the forms will work.
Awesome. We had a great question from the tasks section.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to that. Can you export a CSV from tasks to be imported to a different project?
Yes, and we see that all the time. So as I can see with my report, if I come here, we have a CSV, you can include everything. And then you just have to make sure that you have it formatted to match the importer. So what that means is setting up your CTAs the same as the other project, or using the same template, cloning, etc. But yes, the short answer is yes.
Awesome, thank you. Going back to forms again, how can I replicate form templates to other projects?
That is a great question. So if I go to here, my manage templates, I can go to this actions button and hit publish to account. What this does is it saves this form on my account level. I can see it here in my templates. These are all of my team's templates, so we have a lot. And then if I were to open up another project, I'll go into this one. I can hit plus new form, import from account, and then it shows me my dropdown. If your form's not showing here, it may be that it's unpublished. So just keep that in mind. Make sure your form is published on your template level, and then you'll be able to import it.
Awesome, thank you. So we have one last poll question for you guys here, and there we go. Just wanted to understand if this webinar made you feel a little bit more comfortable than what you were in setting up this Fieldwire project. Awesome. We're almost at time. Thank you so much, Roma, for going over the project setup. And for everyone, we're going to send the recording of this and also send you the list of all the links that we've posted in the chat as an email post this webinar. Again, thank you so much for attending today, and I hope the session was useful. We would really appreciate it if you could stay over and finish the survey so that we can bring you guys more and more such great webinars. Again, just to call out, this webinar has been because of the survey results that you've left. So if you have any other topics that you want us to cover, please feel free to mention them in the webinar survey, which is followed after this. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Wednesday. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.